theist in New York, Bernard, and wants to talk about proof of God in the Old Testament. Is that right? Bernard, go for it.
Yes, Bernard, right?
Yes.
I'm on now.
Hello,
Yep,
you're
on the show.
I'm an Orthodox Jew. I'm not Christian at all. I don't believe in Christianity, obviously, but I do believe in the Old Testament. And even though Christians also believe the Old Testament is true, and even Muslims think it's true, but I do it from a Jewish perspective. Now, my proof. You want to get to the proof?
Yeah, go for it.
The Old Testament. The Old Testament. First of all, when you talk about evidence, we're talking about the most rational possibility. Not sometimes. I mean, even evolution can't be proven completely, but they say it's the most rational way to go. I don't agree with that, but that's besides the point. But I have evidence, meaning the rational. I can't show you God in a picture. I'm just proving that he must exist through this proof that I'm going to tell you now. And it's by this. The Old Testament was accepted. That we know because we have it now in our hands. Somebody accepted it. It was accepted at one time. And the question is, who accepted it? And before we go into who accepted it, we have to say that there are two possibilities for the Old Testament. Either it was written by a person, not God inspired. People, one person or a group of people decide to write a book and a story and it never really happened. Or it's a true story and it's written by God and it's true. So that's the two possibilities.
I don't know if I... So I want to ask you some questions before we even move forward on this, because does having people accept a text make it true?
Or is that evidence at all?
That...
I'm getting to that. I understand that. Of course not. People accept the New Testament. The New Testament doesn't prove anything. I agree with you. No, but here... and
then I want to ask though as well, because we've now also set up a dichotomy between, like, so we have the Old Testament. Like I agree with you that we have copies of the Old Testament. We know that somebody wrote this text, and I don't necessarily accept that the only two options though are either God wrote it and it's true, or a man wrote it, or a person wrote it and it's false. Like, could a person write something that is partially true but partially false?
Also, could a God write something that's false?
Not completely true. All right, fine. That's fine. Okay.
Because,
but
let me get, it could also be that God is lying, right? Like a God could have written it, but it could just be they're a different God, or just it could be.
That's not rational to say that God would lie. Why should God lie?
Well, it's just a possibility, isn't it? It's one of the options.
Is it?
Yeah, but
so,
it's not a rational possibility.
Why is it?
Why is it not?
Bernard, why is it not rational? Why is it not a rational possibility?
Well, let's get to this point. Let me just.
No, I want you to answer. I want you to answer a question.
This is one of your premises.
Because God, if God is what we think God is, then He is perfect. He doesn't have to lie.
Okay, but here, let me... So hold on. Do you believe that God is something that you created? Like, do you know everything about this God?
I don't know everything about this God. Nobody knows everything about the God.
Okay. So could God do something? So could God do something that you don't know about?
Or don't understand?
Of course, he can do something I don't know about.
So then, why do you think that your perception of what God is entirely what God is? Think about this. If God wanted to lie to you, He has ways. Clearly, we see that if this God exists, He has ways to not let you know about what He's doing. So if God actually wanted to mislead you and not tell you about it, within your own definition of God, He would be able to do that.
It might not even be for a bad reason. He might lie for a good reason. You know, potentially God's got a grander plan that you don't understand, I don't understand. And he's like, the best way to enact the greatest good is if I make up everything in the Old Testament and I just lie about it. Like, that's possible, isn't it?
Okay. That's all right. Can I continue with my proof, and then I think it will answer.
No, we want you to answer our question first.
I think you could just accept that.
Answer through. I'm telling you through my proof. That'll be the answer to your question.
Well, so here's the thing. The reason why we're asking you these questions is because you've set up premises for an argument, and if we don't agree with the premises, then your conclusion isn't going to mean a whole lot to us because we already reject the premises, right? So we need to make sure we're on the same page before we even get to the conclusion of the argument, right?
I hear you. All I said, but there were two possibilities. You said it might be three possibilities, half truth. All right, but basically, either somebody wrote it or God inspired to have it written. Obviously, Moses wrote it according to the Old Testament, but he wrote what God told him to write. He didn't make it up himself. That's the premise.
Okay, so now you have the burden to prove why you believe God wrote this. So how do we know that God told Moses to write this?
Okay, go for it, mate.
Go for it.
You're not letting me prove it. Let me say what I have to say, and then you'll
decide. Okay, go
for it.
Okay. So anyway, so God wrote all this stuff, and it says in the Old Testament that the Jewish people were slaves in Egypt, and they were there, and then they miraculously took them out with the 10 plagues, and when they got out and they went and they reached the Red Sea, and the Red Sea split for them. All these miraculous things that happened to them, and they crossed the Red Sea, and when the Egyptians tried to follow them, the Red Sea.
So hold on. Do you believe that story is true? Do you believe all of that actually happened?
Well, I'm getting to.
No. Okay. I'll let you finish, but you need to can you get to the point a little bit quicker so we can have a discussion with you? Like, I'm not really interested in just listening to the story. I want to talk about why you believe this is true.
I'm willing to discuss whatever you want. Just let me finish first, and then the discussion will be much more clear. Please, it's not that. It takes another 2 minutes. Okay.
I don't know if we have another 2 minutes for you to tell your story, but if I want to ask, do you believe that the Jews were slaves in Egypt and that all of those plagues happened and then they parted the Red Sea and left? Do you believe that happened?
Yes.
Okay, we do not have evidence. We do not have evidence that is true.
I'm getting to that.
In fact,
I'm getting to the evidence.
No.
You're not letting me. I'm getting to the
But
evidence.
I'm telling you that if you read the text and you look at the historical evidence, we do not have historical evidence that many Jews lived in Egypt during that time and escaped. We would have records of this. We see records from smaller civilizations.
I understand.
Yeah.
Whatever you're saying, I understand that. I understand that. Let's just listen to my thing, and then you'll see what I mean. And
I'll give you 10 seconds. I'll give you 10 seconds to deliver it. But I want to discuss it.
There was a revelation at Mount Sinai, according to the Bible. A revelation was 600,000 Jews from the age of 20 to 60 were there, plus all the women and children and older men. It comes out to around 3 million. You can't give the exact number. Were there at the revelation, and God said to them, they heard God say, I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery, right? All that he said to these people. And according to this Old Testament, these are the people that accepted the book.
Okay, so how is that evidence? How is that evidence?
What?
That's all hearsay. We don't even know any of that happened. No, we don't even know any of that happened.
We have a situation where the book is the evidence. Like the only evidence we have of that happening is in the Bible, and you're saying the reason the Bible's true is because of this thing in the Bible, or the Old Testament.
My question to you is, if it did not happen, who accepted this book. It doesn't make any sense to accept the book.
Could somebody
Because it says
could
the-
somebody
that mean?
write
it says-
could somebody
the book
write a
says-
book?
one second.
Could somebody write a book and then
says-
give it to
the
No,
book
hold on.
says-
Listen to me. Could people write a book and then convince their people that their book was correct and then that society
They accept
accepts it?
It's not society. It's the people that it happened to. That's the book. The book says it's the ones that.
That's
it
what they
happened
say,
to
but
are the
so
ones that
Bernard,
accepted
Bernard,
the book.
Bernard, think about history for a second. So throughout the history of the entire world, almost all of them have had a religion that they've used to further political and military agendas. And that's where a lot of this comes from. You had a leader, like a king or somebody, that said, I want to go to war with this other city-state because I want their land. But I can't convince my own people to go fight this other city-state and die in war just because I have a political agenda. So I'm going to tell them that this God told me, he gave me a divine revelation that you need to go and die in war so that we can be glorified as a civilization because we're the chosen ones. And that's why we're going to go fight. That's a way more compelling argument for a lot of people to go to war than, oh yeah, I want what they have, so I need you to go kill them for me. And I need you to risk your life. I need you to leave your family. So people have been doing this ever since the founding of the first pantheons in ancient civilization. So like if you, even taking the story that you're saying, like you're saying that somebody accepted this book to be true, and then that's why all this is true. What do you make of other civilizations? Like take the Indus Valley civilizations, or even ancient Chinese civilizations. They had their own books and they accepted them. Should that be grounds to then also become a Hindu and accept?
No, you're missing the point. You're missing the point I'm trying to make. I'll give you an example. If I would write your own autobiography, a biography of your life, and I would write a story. You were born in Australia, and you went to this school, and I'll make up a whole story about it. Would you accept that as your biography? No, because you know it's not true. You know.
But if you wrote, hang on, Bernard. If you wrote in it, if you wrote in Ben's autobiography, hang on. If you wrote in Ben's biography and Ben accepted this book, and then 2,000 years later, no one who had met Ben was still alive, but they've still got your book, they'll be like, oh, this book says Ben accepted it. Like, why else would he accept it if it wasn't true?
That's true. When you're talking about one person, so
well, you could write in there that everyone accepted it.
I understand that. But according
you
to
could write in there like 100 people accepted it.
There was about 3 million people that accepted this book. That said it.
Yeah, but have you met any of them? Have you met any of them, Bernard?
About them.
You might know how many people accepted the Bhagavad
How do you
Gita?
know?
Like
the only
there's.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people accepted the Quran?
Hang on, Bernard, because you're saying you know that 3 million people accepted this book, but the only reason you know that is because it says it in the book. Like, there's not video evidence of them accepting it. You haven't met them. There's not another account, or hundreds of other accounts or whatever, other corroborating piece of evidence. It's the book says these people accepted it. Like your example then with Ben's biography and then Ben accepting it as true. You say, oh, well, that's only one person. What if you wrote the history of the UK and you just wrote it totally wrong? And then you said, and all the people of the UK accepted it. And then in 3,000 years' time, we're all dead and the UK doesn't exist anymore. And they're like, oh, look, 66 million people accepted this book. Like that's the equivalent of this situation, isn't it?
No.
What's the difference?
Rational.
It wouldn't be rational, but that doesn't stop you from doing it.
I'm saying that those are the people that accepted the book. The ones that it happened to are the ones that accepted the book. Now I'm asking you.
And how do you know that?
Accept the book if they know it didn't happen?
I don't believe they accepted it.
Whoever accepted the book to begin with, would they accept it differently than it says in the book that they accepted it? That's completely a lie. In other words,
they just
can
make it
do
up.
that.
The book will just make it up. Why wouldn't they just make it up?
Who made it up?
Somebody
wrote the book.
Who accepted it? Who accepted it?
People, humans.
People accept it today. Like when someone turns up, a Christian turns up in your school when you're a kid, and you're like, "Oh, look, here's the Bible, here's the whatever holy book," and then you accept it. Like you accept because you're taught it, and you don't know anyone who's written the book, and you're just told all these other people have accepted it, and you just kind of.
But the book.
Like, it's the same thing.
The
The
book-
first person who was ever shown this
book
book
says
and
how it was
converted to this
accepted.
religion.
The book itself says how it was accepted. So if it was
Yeah,
accepted
but you
in
could
any
just write
different
anything
way-
in it.
This is
like,
do
surely
you know,
you must understand.
Bernard,
Come on.
Do you know what circular reasoning is?
No, what's circular?
Because that's what this is. So you have an argument, and then you give your evidence, and it all just goes in a circle. So your evidence points to the claim, and then it's like, because you're saying that the book is true because the book says it's true.
The book says that
It's all going in a circle, right?
Didn't believe that it happened, or didn't believe. Some believe or didn't believe. It says that they were the ones that it happened to. They saw that they were the ones that it happened to. It's not. I'm believing a story.
So you need to. So
I
you need
try
to
this?
prove this.
Can I try this step-by-step thing? If I wrote in a book that like the 1 million people, oh no, let me just say the UK. If I wrote in a book today and said everyone in the UK jumped 3 meters high because of the power of God, and then I said everyone accepted it, like, do you agree that I could do that?
Say that again. I understand what happened. What did you do?
If I wrote a book, if I was writing a book and I said everyone alive in the UK jumped 3 meters high into the air because of the power of God, I could write that in a book, correct? Step one.
Right. But
And then I could say, everyone. Then I could say underneath. Then I could say underneath, everyone in the UK believes this book is true and they have accepted it. Do you agree that I could write that?
You could write that, but who
Yeah.
actually accepted?
And then if I gave it to someone in another culture who's never been to the UK, never met a UK person, and I said, here is the evidence, to an Australian man, I could say, here is the evidence that everyone in the UK jumped 3 meters high. And I can show you that because they accepted it. Like, who else accepted it?
Not those people.
Yeah, it's all those people.
Not those people that you're talking about.
The UK, everyone in the UK accepted
it. Bernard, have you ever exaggerated something that has happened in your life? Like, have you told your friends a story about something that's happened that maybe you've exaggerated so you sound a little bit cooler? Have you ever done that?
If I tell a story, if I exaggerate a story about myself, of course the other person has to believe me or not believe me. But
so do you think people might exaggerate themselves, especially in a book? Do you think that ancient people might exaggerate things in their story to make their society seem better than it was?
Well, it's not a question, but you have to give the book has to be accepted first. How's it going to be accepted by people that know it's not true?
How to be accepted before you write it? I think we're going in. I think we're going in
circles.
Yeah.
I can't exaggerate about you and make you believe it. You know if it happened or not. If I'm telling you,
but you could write in a book that I believed it. Bernard, you could just say, say, I told Katie that she had 3 eyes, and she believed it. You could write that in a book, couldn't you?
And some people do write things that are exaggerated, and people just go along with it because that's their culture at the time. Like, we see this with like the god kings of ancient Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. Like, they believed their pharaoh. No, listen, they believed their pharaoh was the god king, and I don't know to what extent they've convinced themselves that was true, but they convinced at least the rest of their society that the pharaoh was a deity, and that was written throughout their history. So they can exaggerate things that they experienced. Like, I'm sure the people around that king were part of this. They were part of this. Like, they had scribes that would write down this history that would include the pharaoh being the incarnation of Horus. But do you think that they actually that actually happened just because they wrote that? I don't know how productive this discussion is getting, because we keep bringing up more and more examples about why people can exaggerate.
Pharaoh, of course you can exaggerate. But I'm saying they're
Yeah.
about the people, about the people themselves that accepted the book. It happened to them. They know if it happened to them or not. It's not a question of belief. Either it happened or it didn't happen to them. They know if it happened. I can't exaggerate a story about you. I can't say this happened to you when you know it didn't happen. It's ridiculous. I can exaggerate about myself, and maybe you believe it, you won't believe it. That's something else I can exaggerate. But to exaggerate about you, that this happened to you, and convince you that it happened to you, that's ridiculous. Especially when we're talking about 3 million people. We're not talking about one person here.
Yep. But Bernard, the 3 million people...
Never happened to anybody.
If you were trying to convince me of an exaggeration about me, if you were trying to say Katie is 10 feet tall, and you tried to convince me, that wouldn't work, because I am the person who you're making the claim about.
Exactly.
And we have evidence right in front of me. Yeah, because I am here today.
Exactly.
Yeah, but none of these 3 million people are alive today. So the only evidence we have that they agreed with the claim is that it's written in the book.
It's not rational that the book was accepted in a way that
those 3 million people be totally made up. They might be totally like.
What?
Do you know those 3 million people definitely lived?
You mean definitely lived? It says. You mean who accepted the book? It says that 3 million people accepted the book.
So here's something. I think there's I think
if it's not them.
I think you need to take a step back and evaluate what it means for something to be rational, because I think you're trying to use rational as a way to say this is just common sense, that you would intuit that this doesn't make sense to me, and that's not. You can't equivocate common sense with this definition of rationality that you're trying to say that this can prove a claim. So I think you need to reevaluate your argument and determine, would this actually convince somebody? And even put yourself in the shoes of somebody looking at a completely different culture. Look at Hindu religion. Apply your argument and see if you can use that same argument to prove that Hinduism is true. Because I think you can reach any religion with the claims that you're making here. So I definitely call back in.
Has this part. No
we've talked
this part where it's talking about the people that the people that accepted it were the people something that happened to.
I think Bernard, I think you need to.
Has that.
I think you need to read about more religions.
Yeah.
I encourage you to read some history, read some religion, and then call back next time, and we'll see if the argument changes at all, or if you have maybe a better case in support of.
Thanks for calling, Bernard. I suspect that every single religion has a claim, like millions of people saw the Holy One do a thing, and therefore it's fine. Our religion is true. I'd be surprised if there was a single religion on earth that didn't have that.